Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Cop Council. How are we all? Hopefully, all of you are having a fantastic Friday, wherever you are around the world. And of course, welcome back to our match preview show, of course, for Liverpool, or Leicester, be Liverpool, I should say. And of course, I could not do a Leicester preview without this man to me, next to me, of course. I think we've become frenemies over the years, certainly with top four, for a thing, certainly 2 seasons ago. Of course, we have Ant from Ant's Leicester fan channel. But Ant, how are we, mate? Hopefully you're
Yeah,
well.
I'm sound, mate. It's like I'm saying before we went live. You was expecting me to be depressed as anything. I'm in, like those 5 stages of like denial, isn't it? Of,
Well, one of those famous TikToks. It's just
yeah. I've gone beyond that stage of being angry. I've gone beyond the stage of denial. Gone beyond the stage of grief. I'm at the stage of acceptance now.
yeah, absolutely. Again, obviously, an absolute crap season for Leicester, but we are going to talk, of course, majorly Leicester, of course, Liverpool as well. Anyway, but guys, please go over as well if anyone is new over to Ant's channel as well. Please go and hit and subscribe over today as well. Anyway, Carl's in. Hello, Carl. Hopefully, on a fantastic night, my friend, as well. And again, guys, if you're new to the stream as well, please hit that like button, please hit that subscribe button, and all that good stuff as well. But we will dive straight into it, and of course, as you've already mentioned, Leicester not sitting pretty this season, of course. At the moment, in the relegation zone, as things stand. Of course, obviously big weekends in terms of the fixtures around you. Of course, I think you've got Leeds and Newcastle. That's a huge game. I think in terms of the relegation battle. But again, looking at 18th in the league, 21 defeats. What's gone wrong this season for Leicester?
How long we got? Genuinely,
An
like
hour.
I did a stream on this the other day. We were going for 3 hours. So how long we got? But,
As long as you want.
where to start? So the easy answer is Brendan Rodgers. Like I said it, and this isn't just a genius in hindsight. And Connor can quote me on this. I said this 18 months ago. If Brendan Rodgers stays at this Leicester for the start of this season, we were going to be in trouble. And I said that a long time ago. You could see the red flags there. They were so clear. And it's just like, as the great man Nigel Pearson once said, we've buried our heads in the sand like ostriches and have been surprised that we've been absolutely shite. So you look at like the recruitment has gone downhill massively, and people will say, "How can you blame that on Brendan Rodgers?" Brendan Rodgers sacked the scouts that were here before and who brought the players in that we had the success under, and then we've brought in Lee Congerton, his mate from Celtic. We've gone against what sort of made us competitive in the first place of signing young, hungry players, developing them, improving them, selling them on for big money. And then he went and tried to go with more experienced heads, the likes of Bertrand, who at the time Southampton fans were laughing at us saying he's been finished for 2 years. Then what do? We put him on a 3-year contract, 80 grand a week, and we're still paying his wages now. I think the last game he played for us was that game at Anfield, in the League Cup.
Yeah.
Like that's the last
the last ever game.
What?
The last game till now.
That's the last game he played for us. And we're still paying 80k a week for him. We've got Vestergaard that Brendan Rodgers was talking to something like 8 months before we signed. And then Vestergaard this season's come out in public Danish interviews slating Brendan Rodgers, calling him a shit manager. And it's like, how are you going to tap up a player for 18 months, be a player that doesn't rate you and a player that doesn't fit the system? It's just like everything about it has been a car crash. And it's like, the signs were there. Look at his recruitment at Celtic. Look at it at Liverpool. Why couldn't Top gave him the power at the club that he did? It's ridiculous. He is Alan Pardew with better PR. I'm sorry, I'm absolutely fed up of hearing he's an elite manager. No, is he bollocks? He's a half decent coach that comes in, gets a bounce, and then it falls apart everywhere he goes. And as I said, I could go on for a long time, and I think I will. You've set me off now, so you can thank Connor for this. Playing Danny Ward 28 games of the season when we had the young goalkeeper of the Championship on the bench in Iverson. Like, how hasn't he got a look in? Got Siunchu, a player at the age of 24, and I don't think he's the best centre back in the world, but he's a half decent centre back and a centre back that at the age of 24 was in the team of the season in the Bundesliga for Freiburg and has been in the team of the season in the Premier League for Leicester. Sitting on the bench, not getting a minute in for Daniel Amati, a right back by trade, and our third choice right back, who's starting at centre back, who is a calamity waiting to happen. And now Ciuncu, of 40-50 million pound assets, walking out the door from Madrid to go and play under Simeone. If you're a bad centre back, you do not go and play under Diego Simeone. It's that simple. And then you look at the neglect that a player like Iheanacho's got, who has been our best striker for over a year. And the thing is, everyone's going to say this is reactionary, which is what pisses me off. But I've been banging this drum
I think,
for so long.
I think with me and you, but I think even if you go back and look at a Leicester preview back 3 years ago, I think me and you were talking about it, and as Jack has said, but they, as well, like we did one and a few years ago, and you said it perfectly there as well in terms of recruitment at Liverpool. I remember that season after 13-14, and we were linked over, what was it? I think 25 strikers in that summer. Like, it was ridiculous.
Didn't he come out publicly and say something about we won't sign Balotelli or some shit like that?
It was the fact that he publicly said that he doesn't trust the transfer committee. Now, this is the same transfer committee that has worked wonders under Jurgen Klopp. So I think there you go. There's the solution. But I do agree with you in the sense of when we look at Brendan Rodgers, and even now when you even talk about the Spurs job, for example, like Brendan Rodgers' name is near the top of that list now, and I'm like, how? Yeah,
like, it's like people are just look at the first 2 years he's done at Leicester, and then look, he hasn't been back this summer. Well, have a fucking look why he hasn't been back. He got us into a corner with FFP where we couldn't spend any money because he spunked it all up on the wall on players like Vestergaard and Bertrand.
Yeah, no.
Rant over, sorry.
I generally because looking from the outside, it is similar to like what happened with Liverpool. The fact that he stopped listening to the people that was telling him, look, you got to. These are the people you should be going after, and he didn't do it, and then of course everything crumbled. And then you look at for example, like Liverpool, where I think we spent, it was over like 160 million, I think, in his last summer on the likes of on the likes of Benteke, obviously Nathaniel Klein, and obviously there's many others as well that I'm not thinking of right now. But I think it is the fact that it is just, and I was asking you this off camera as well. Do you think that, especially in your terms, you mentioned FFP, in terms of certain players, like you look at, for example, like Yuri Tillemans now going to be leaving, or most likely leaving on a free transfer at the end of the season. Do you think it's been, has the club been too loyal in that instance in terms of players and manager, or do you think that there's just one person that is to blame for Leicester's problems?
Ultimately, and people don't like to hear this, because when you're doing well, our owner was taking all the credit in the world. He's got to take some criticism. Brendan Rodgers should have gone after we lost 4-1 to Forest in the Cup. Like, you cannot be the FA Cup holders, turn up at your local rivals for a derby and lose 4-1. And it went downhill from there. And there's genuinely, and this sounds like an exaggerated number, there's genuinely 15 realistic matches where you look at it and go, yeah, there's no way he turns it around from that point. You go from that game to following up 2 weeks later where we were 2-1 up against Spurs in the 95th minute. We lost 3-2. There's the game against Napoli at home. And by the way, this shows how far we've declined, by the way. Bookmakers made us and Napoli equal odds to get out of that group in the Europa League. Napoli have gone on to win the Scudetto, and I'm not by no means comparing Leicester to Napoli, but it's shows the decline of one and the
rise of another one.
Yeah, and we've actually spent more than Napoli, by the way, which is a ridiculous thing. Yeah. As much as I love Top, and he's got that the best interest of Leicester at heart, he's not his old man, and his old man was so ruthless. People was like the amount of abuse that he took when he sacked Ranieri. Ultimately, you can look back now. Can you say it's the wrong decision? Like we would have
No.
got relegated.
Mm.
Like people said, getting rid of Puel, like was harsh, ruthless, etc. When we were 12th in the league, and we were told that we're Leicester sort of thing, stay in your lane. He saw more that there was more from this squad, and got rid of Puel, brought in Rodgers, and bless his soul, I'm still convinced to this day, if Vichai was still here, Rodgers would have gone after that 4-1 Forest game.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. I think though it is that sense of, again though, it's, you talked about it there about maybe potentially being too comfortable where you are at the moment. Like I think me and you, we spoke off camera, and we was saying about if Leicester did get relegated, I think you said in terms it could be another Sunderland where you go down again, and I think that's an interesting one. I think we were speaking off camera in terms of, you look at that Leicester team, it's too good to be relegated on paper. And I think when
but they play, that's the thing. Sorry to interrupt you, mate. That's the thing that's pissed me off all season, is that like on paper we're too good to be relegated, like supposedly, but the squad have played like that all season. Like, oh, we're too good to go down. We don't need to put a shift in. And I'll tell you, the player that pisses me off more than anyone is Harvey Barnes, supposedly a Leicester City fan, backing out of 50-50s, left, right, and centre, not tracking back. And it's like, you're fucking off in the summer. Like, you are going in the summer. And it's like, to you, it's irrelevant if we get relegated or not. And like, I sort of accept it slightly more when it comes from Tielemans, a player who doesn't really have an affiliation with the club. But when it's supposedly the club that you support, the club that you care about, and you've got players like Yuri Tielemans, who's going to walk in the summer for free, putting 10 times more of a shift in than you, like, it's just like, it's completely the wrong way. And then he came out with this ridiculous statement on Sky the other day saying about, oh, we don't want to leave the club in a worse situation when we found it. And his first thing that he talked about was players leaving. And it's like, that clearly shows like where most of the mindset of these players are.
I feel like that's been the sense though of Leicester players the last year and a half. Like you mentioned Tielemans, like obviously I know, I think it's predicted that he's going to be going, and I think everyone's pretty positive that he will be leaving Leicester in the summer. But I feel like that, like it's perfect what you mentioned in terms of Harvey Barnes. Like you look at, remember when we were linked with him? I think me and you, we had conversations in terms of Harvey Barnes, and Liverpool were linked, I think, on getting quoted like £70 million. And the decline has been huge.
The thing is, though, he's a player, though, statistically, he's having his best ever season. He's got, I think, 13 goals this season. But it's like, it's all well and good scoring goals when we're 5-1 down, 5-2 down at Fulham. It's like, that's the thing that annoys me. And James Maddison's stats, whilst he's been brilliant this season, his stats are like, you look at them and they're sort of like KDB level. And it's like, you actually watch him, and it's like, well, you've just got 2 assists when we're 3-0, like 5-0 down. What's the point? Like why start playing when we're 5-0 down? And it's like, and it's not just like the one-off against Fulham. It's like, there's been so many times where you look where his goals and assists have come from. It's been when we're dead and buried in games. That's why Iheanacho's goals and assists aren't actually as high as like players like Barnes or Maddison. But Iheanacho is a much more important player for us because he gets big goals, and like you look at the Leeds game, the assist he got there. You look at Tottenham, he was scoring in the games where those goals are important goals, instead of the fact of like James Maddison. I can't remember. And for a player that I love Maddison, he shouldn't be captain though. He's almost trying too hard, and the last game that we won was the game that he was ill. It's like, as much as I think he's a brilliant player and he will go on to play for a top club, I think like it's hard to explain, but he's almost trying too hard.
It's like a Harry Kane effect. Like like the team seems to be playing a lot better without Maddison than when he's in the team.
Yeah. And the thing is,
sorry to interrupt. Where do you think he'll end up next season? Being a Leicester fan, do you think he I think it's if you do get relegated, I think he will leave. But is there any links at the? I think Newcastle was getting shouted at for
Yeah,
Madison,
but
but
that's more fan driven. Newcastle is, I think, the most reliable links from Leicester journalists is Man City.
yeah, that wouldn't be a bad shout. To be fair, anyway. But guys, if any of you guys got questions for Ant as well on Leicester's season as well, let me know in the comments. Rob's in saying, Ant, that's what happens when you try and start Jamie Vardy in 2023.
I wish he had been starting this season. That's a problem. He ain't. Like you look in the last 4 games since Dean Smith's come in, he's got 3 goals. It's like if he had been starting a lot more this season, we probably would be in a better position. But unfortunately, he's got this weird obsession. Brendan Rodgers had this weird obsession of trying to play Izzy Perez and Harvey Barnes down the middle because he'd fallen out with even more players in our squad.
Yeah, as Jack said, but not a rant, and it's passion. These clubs mean so much to us all. Yeah, absolutely, 100% with that as well. I will quickly ask you. Gary said there who replaces Brendan in terms of a manager for next season. Is there, I know obviously at the minute it's Dean Smith, but is there any indication on who the manager is going to be for next season, or
It so depends if we're a Premier League or Championship club. But you know what annoys me more than anything? If Brendan went at the start of the season, we could have got the likes of Unai Emery, Lopetegui. Like you look at the Wolves and Villas of these worlds. Now we're really, really scraping the barrel for like anyone. And I like Dean Smith. I think if we go down, I'd like to keep Dean Smith. He's not a firefighter manager, which is the thing that I found it a strange appointment at the time. But we left it so long. Like, who else were we going to really bring in? But you look at Dean Smith, and his name's a bit tarnished because of the time at Norwich. But you look previous to that, he built that Villa squad that got promoted, and like the development that he had on Grealish was absolutely huge. He built the foundations of what Thomas Frank's done at Brentford, and like you even look previous to that, like the job he did at Walsall. So he's a manager that knows the Championship very well and a manager that knows how to get you out of it. If we stay up, I still think we can get Graham Potter, but I don't think we stay up, if I'm honest.
Just going to quickly have a look at your fixtures as well, because
we've got Newcastle away and West Ham.
Yeah, so about to say, again, you could do us a favour if you really wanted to, like with Newcastle, to be fair, and obviously with us. But yeah, I think you mentioned a good point. I know, obviously, Mark's mentioned there Lampard, and obviously Rob said Mick McCarthy. Like that again, guys. Like Mick McCarthy got sacked from Blackpool. Jesus Christ. But I do agree with you. It does massively depend on whether or not you are a Premier League club next season. I think if you can get, if you could get a win, that'd be huge. Because I look at Leeds fixtures,
I've said for a while, though, I think if we win this game, we'll stay up because West Ham will still, touch wood, will have that Conference League final, 4 days after the end of the season. If they're in a European final, they'll be safe. There is no way they go strong. But the thing is, we couldn't string 5 passes together against Fulham. I've got no confidence in us beating you guys. And that's not me being pessimistic because normally, even when we've been pretty bang average mid-table, I've always backed us at home.
Yeah.
Now I just cannot see us. I genuinely can't see us winning the game.
Yeah, I was saying to you off camera, so I was watching that Everton game, and that looking back at that was so crucial. Like Maddison's penalty was so crucial. Like if he'd scored that, then as me and you were saying off camera, 3-1, it's pretty much games done and dusted. Then I do agree with you on most of what you said. Like again, Leicester, it has been a wreck. And I think obviously the emotion side of it has been obviously you were saying to me off camera, like it's now where everything's just numb and there's no emotion for this season.
I'll tell you what, this relegation will hurt more than most others for me because we've had crap teams before full of triers and people that try and really get themselves about the pitch but just have not been very good. Now, we've got on paper one of the most talented squads we've ever had with players that will go to top clubs if we do get relegated, or even if we stay up. I still think we'll lose a huge amount of players that on paper should be nowhere near the relegation zone, and will get relegated. And it feels like it's so preventable, and that's what hurts more about it. And it's like the fact that where we were 3 years ago was never sustainable for a club like Leicester to challenge for top 6, top 4 year after year after year. And I think like we're realistic of that. But when you've got the 7th most valuable squad in the league and the 7th highest wage bill in the league and the 10th most valuable squad in the league, with the 4th highest paid manager, which is what Brendan Rodgers was, you should be nowhere near the bottom of the league. But ultimately, we are where we deserve to be. Like, the table doesn't lie. We have been shocking this year. And it's almost been this arrogance of, oh, we're too good to go down. Oh, we'll be fine. And that's what's got us into the position we're in. And it's only Dean Smith who started to talk a bit of sense in the last month that's given us any bit of hope. And Dean Smith's got 5 points out of 4 games, I believe it is. Yeah. That's more than Brendan Rodgers got in 2.5 months. It's like people, this is what annoys me when like people say, "Oh, but you'll be fine," and that line has annoyed me so much this season.
It's always the same. It is always the same phrase of, "Oh, you'll be fine, Leicester will be fine," and then it's like it's coming more and more towards the end of the season. And you're like, "Yeah, we're not fine, and we need to."
Yeah, but the thing is, we've never looked fine, and it's like it's all well and good having a great team on paper, but it's like if you're not picking your best goalkeeper, you're not picking your best centre back because you've had an argument with him, you're not picking your best defensive midfielder because you've fallen out with him. It's like when you've fallen out with the spine of your team and you're picking players like Amati and Didi and Danny Ward over your best players. It's like...
Sorry to cut you off. Was Schmeichel leaving a factor down to Brendan Rodgers in the summer?
Yes, but apparently had a falling out with Brendan Rodgers.
I can just imagine there being a dartboard in your room with Brendan Rodgers as the centre of it.
The thing is, Brendan Rodgers, his legacy has been massively tainted at Leicester. If he'd went 18 months ago, as he should have, I wouldn't feel this frustrated about him. But he delivered 3 of the best seasons I'll have as a Leicester fan, and I'm fully aware of that. Of the 2 5th-place finishes, ultimately one of them should have been a top 4, but delivering that FA Cup as well. And then if he'd then gone after that point, sort of when we lost, what was it, 6 months later after we lost 4-1 to Forest when it was all starting to unravel. If he went at that point, I think he would probably be put, maybe not in the same breath as Ranieri, but he would still be talked of really highly. The fact it has carried on in the same way, like for 18 months now, it just feels like his time's massively tainted and he's left an absolute train wreck behind with it.
Yeah. I remember the last game at Anfield, and I think I was speaking to you on that, and again it was like I think he was even saying to me then like, look, things need to change now. But then again, it's been like you mentioned, it's been like the last 18 months, 2 years in terms of this.
I said that though, when we beat you at King Power last year, I said and I did a post match with you. I think it was with you. It's either with you or Doug. It's like, do not let the fact that we've beaten you 1-0 distract you from the fact that that's 1 win in 6, and we still need a huge change. Because the thing is, we come up with a big result here or there against the likes of Spurs or against the likes of Liverpool, and everyone seems to think, oh, they're fine. And it's like, and the people who annoy me more is the people who will watch our highlights and see, oh, they scored a couple of good goals there. It's like, watch us for 90 minutes. We couldn't fight our way out of a
3 passes. No, absolutely. But yeah, guys, if you've got any questions about it, let us know. I know there's a couple of people that have asked a few things as well. Obviously, Jack said, but it makes it worse that you have Forest down there with you, Ant, as well.
Not really. I'm not asked what they do. I'll be honest, I'm not asked.
I think it was the start of the season where you was like if we get them, we batter them. Like I think you're saying to me like, if we end up battering them, that'll make my season. Like
and we did it 4-0. What a season! Null and void the season.
That's been me for the entirety of the season, to be fair. But what's the player status at Leicester? Any coming to the end of their contract?
There's a fair few coming to the end of their contracts, but there's a fair few heading into about last year. But I think the thing for me was it's not just the amount of players that we've got out of contract, it's the amount of players that sort of, even the ones on longer term contracts that you're starting to hear want to leave as well. It's like, it's not the time for it. And unfortunately, it's coming all at the wrong moment.
Yeah, it's like you said, it's like you got it looks like with the Leicester squad, it's either like you said, you got players or key players on 1 year left on their deal, people leaving on a free, or people aging quite going on, like example like Vardy, for example. I think has he got 2 years left on his deal? I think Jamie
1 year.
Vardy 1 year. Yeah, so
or they're just completely crap.
Yeah, that's the sad reality about it. To be fair, but moving on to Liverpool, what of course I could have ripped my hair out with Liverpool this season for how poor it's been. But what have you made from the outside looking in terms of Liverpool? And again, more recently, of course, 6 wins on the bounce now for Liverpool. But what have you made of Liverpool looking at them afar this season?
Hit and miss. Like sometimes you can be absolutely brilliant, and sometimes you can think, "Am I watching Liverpool or Stoke?" Like it's like, do you know what I mean? You know what I mean, though. Like
I know what you mean.
Like sometimes you look and it's like, this is some of the best football I've seen. Like Liverpool play for a long time, and it's strange because it's like up until this run that you've got been on, it sort of came in fits and bursts where sometimes like you looked really, really good, and then other times you looked awful. And when I went to Anfield earlier this season, and I know we lost 2-1, but I was amazed how shocking you actually were, because it says a lot that Wout Faes was your highest goal scorer for 2 months. Which
we didn't score, did we? Like, got to thank your centre off for that. I'll probably sign him in the summer off use. To be fair, off of that, but no, it has been pretty. Again, the last 6-7 games have been a massive improvement with the new system. And I think obviously before then it was just a chaotic season when nothing was working in terms of, again, the counter press, the defending, and so on. But I want to ask you about Trent, because I know me and you, we've had interesting conversations when it comes to Trent. What have you made of his new hybrid style? Do you think that I know I was listening to a couple of people and they're like, oh, it could be used for England potentially in the future.
No.
Yeah, but what do you make of it for Liverpool, first of all, in terms of
Liverpool? I think it works very well because you can build a system around him, and I think yes, it sort of like his defensive side of his game isn't the best as it is, and I think it exposes it even more. But what you get on the ball from him is absolutely brilliant, and like the way that he can like cut through the lines with his passing range. There's very few players with that sort of ability. I don't think he's got the ability to play in that like as a natural midfielder. And what I mean by that, like on the ball, he's absolutely top draw. Yeah. But I don't think, like receiving the ball and taking the ball on the half turn, like you need like a top midfielder to do that. I don't like. That's why I've never sort of liked this.
He's perfect at seeing the whole pitch instead of being in the middle of it all, like number 8 or number 10.
Yeah, that's it, mate. And he's one of those that I feel like he gets overhated because he's so good at one thing and there's an area of his game he's weak on. People still act as if he's like some 30-year-old. He's what, 23, 24?
24.
Like what player at that age is a complete player? And like, whilst I think he does need to work on the defensive side of his game, it's like you can't ignore the fact that you've got like a generational attacking right back there that's like creating on one of the most frequent bases. Like, and something that annoys me as well with Trent, and I like Nunes, but if Trent had like the probably 3, 4, 5 extra assists he probably should have had this season, I might be being generous here. Everyone would be talking about him as if he's but everyone would be talking about him as if he'd had some like outstanding season. But because his assist numbers aren't as high as they've been before, everyone's focusing on the negatives. And like we're not naive. Like we both know that his defensive side isn't all that. But that get exposed. I think that's been exposed more because of the fact of how weak your midfield's been in front of it.
Yeah.
Like when you were at your best, Trent and Robertson could get forward. Then you've got Van Dijk, who, whilst I still think is a brilliant defender, I don't think he is what he was a couple of years ago. We used to have Van Dijk alongside him with either Matip or Gomez, who were both brilliant. But then you would also have that defensive security of a player like Fabinho, and then two workhorses in with like Gini Wijnaldum and Henderson. So the system worked perfectly. But whilst you don't replace the players like Henderson and Gini Wijnaldum, and you let a player like Fabinho decline, then it is going to expose you on when you're going backwards. And so I think as much as you can blast him for his poor defensive side, and there is that to it, like he's been massively exposed and let down by the fact that your team hasn't developed at the same rate he has.
Yeah. No, I absolutely agree, 100%. I think. I think the first couple of months of the season, I think Trent did struggle. I think, again, like you mentioned, I think he's been massively overhated in some instances, certainly since after the World Cup. Of course, Liverpool haven't performed amazingly, the entirety since the World Cup, and so on. But I think Trent has been on the better side of it. And again, like you say, the midfield, like, well, of course, that's a lot we've mentioned it, of course, on numerous videos and that, like the fact that midfield have struggled, obviously with this new system now, it's obviously massively helped. And Trent has obviously paved the way for that as well. Because again, I think in the last 7 games, he's got 6 assists as well. So I think even when you look at it, I think he's tied up with Robbo on 8 assists in the league. So again, I think when you look at that, it's again his assist numbers is crazy. And when you look at his statistics since moving into this new role as well, he's been by far Liverpool's best creative player, without a shadow of a doubt. But you mentioned Nunes there. As well. I want to know I don't think I've spoke to you on Darwin Nunes so far this season, but what have you made of Darwin?
I talked to him, I think, just after you signed him, and when Mane left as well. I said, I don't think you'll miss Mane. I think you'll miss not replacing Mane with a sort of Mane-esque type of player, because Nunes is many things. He's not a Mane type player, and
no, he's far from it.
No, and I think he's a player that what didn't help him to start with, and I'll say this now, and I know I'm going to get slated for this on the Liverpool channel, is Liverpool fans comparing him to Haaland. It's like that instantly, like you can laugh at it, but instantly you put sort of, do you know what I mean? You set like unreal targets for him. But what I will say about him is, as frustrating as his finishing is, he causes problems. He's a handful. He needs to sort his finishing out. You can't be like a striker for an elite club and not be able to finish in the way that he can. He'll get goals, but he also spews so many chances. But at the same time, I still feel long term Gakpo will be more of a problem than Nunes will.
I think that's currently the debate between Liverpool supporters, who it does start when you have next season the fully fit and available Liverpool team. I think everyone has the question. For me, I still think it is Darwin, and you are right in terms of I think people were like quoting in terms of when you talk of Lewandowski when he first worked under Jurgen Klopp, and he said like I wanted to finish everything. I wanted to be a 40, 50, 60 goal a season striker, and it didn't work out that way. And I think that's the same with Darwin. I think when you look at his second seasons and Almara and of course Benfica, he's done tremendously well.
I'm not sure. And this is coming from my dad, because a lot of my family's from Portugal, so they watch Portuguese league more than probably either of us do. But my dad's saying that it was very similar in Portugal. The fact that he scored goals, but he also still when his numbers were very high, he still missed a lot of chances. And I'm not coming on here to say he's a bad player. Like he clearly isn't. But I think if you're going to put him in that bracket of top strikers, you can't miss the amount of chances that he does.
I think once he's got his, I think when something is that one thing, isn't it? When it clicks, like he'll be scoring 25, 30 goals a season, I think easily. It's just when does it click in that instance as well. To be fair, but what we got? Susan's in saying Ugarte, all paper talk. If Jurgen has his way, if you're a Liverpool player, chill out. I'm sick of reading all this crap. Don't worry, have faith as well. Again, yeah, obviously I'll talk about transfers tomorrow because again, there's been a load of stuff about McAllister and other bits and pieces as well. Nunes has been used poorly. I think again, it's the worst. It's been the worst time to bring him into a Liverpool team because again, look how poor we've been this season.
He's looked more effective off when he's running off the left though, and sort of making the arced runs in behind. Even when he's played down the middle, like he's made those runs off the left, which I think is where he's caused more issues. Which it's like I say, he's clearly not a bad player, but it's just is he that player that you need?
I think
I'm not as convinced as you guys are, but at the same time, I've got no emotional attachment to Liverpool.
Yeah.
So it's like sometimes, and I found this with Leicester, it's like you get the best opinion from someone who doesn't have an attachment, but at the same time, like on the same hand, you guys will have watched him 10 times more than I will have. So you'll be sort of more. I think for you guys, you'll be a lot more hoping that he becomes good than obviously someone who's just sort of watching him as a neutral.
I think when you look at the big thing for us looking at it, I think if you look at the data and you look at the stuff like in terms of like chances missed and so on, like again if you convert half of them and compared to the ones you've already scored this season, again you're looking at 25, 30 goals a season.
But I'd feel more confident about that, and this is I know he'll probably score against us, but then
watch score a hat-trick now tomorrow.
He probably will, but who hasn't this season? Like, if I'm honest, like, I'd be more worried if he doesn't score against us if I was a Liverpool fan. But it's like what would worry me, and I'm not what would worry me is the fact he's never been prolific, and like it's not something that just comes in an off-season sort of thing in that second season, and it's like it's all well and good doing it whilst you're at Benfica, whilst you're in the most dominant team in Portugal. It's a complete different game where you're at Liverpool, so you're one of the better teams on paper in the league, but like let's call a spade a spade. The Premier League is a level above the Portuguese league.
Of course, it's the best league in the world as well. But yeah, I think I think it will take time. I think even you can mention this in terms of it will be a long-term project with Darwin. I think he'll be amazing for Liverpool. But then again, I think Cody Gakpo as well. I think would be amazing for Liverpool.
I really like Cody Gakpo. When we played PSV last year, when you watch some players live and you just like the movements he's making is absolutely like ridiculous, and like such an intelligent footballer. It's like he's got all the physical attributes, but it's like the footballing IQ and the brain. I love those kind of players. That's why I really like Thiago for you guys. I know he's injured, but it's like he does stuff that shouldn't be easy and makes it look like it's like just like a fat bloke on a Sunday morning, just absolutely cruising about. And it's like the one that I won't forget is where I can't even remember who it was against. It was in the Champions League where he sort of hits the volley directly into the floor. Porto. Yeah, Porto. That kind of goal, the technique on that bastard, like a proper player.
To be fair, I think with Thiago, it is that frustrating thing with him. It's like the fact that again you've got a brilliant player there, but you get him 20 games a season. That's a max. That's the only frustrating thing with Thiago, to be fair. But there's a couple people saying people talking in terms of news. Anyway, again, we'll talk about that tomorrow, guys, in tomorrow's show. Until it's done, it's official. Yeah, again, it's always talk, isn't it? Ancelotti rates him highly. Yeah, Carlo Ancelotti rates Darwin very highly. To be fair, he wanted to sign him for Madrid, but again, didn't happen.
Who's that? Say sorry.
Ancelotti wanted to sign Darwin at Real Madrid.
Is that like he actually wanted to sign him, or is this how Arsenal fans say that
No, actually, one of
Arteta's
decided.
wanted by Barcelona
It's
because it
not.
sounds
It's
good.
not an Arteta situation. Don't worry.
Okay.
Uh,
You know exactly the one I mean as well, don't you? It's
yeah,
like,
I know exactly what you mean. No, it's not an Arteta situation. Look at Salah, what he did. He do at Chelsea and then Liverpool. Some players need time, or the right club as well. 100%.
yeah,
Like look at Mason Mount, for example. Look, right now, am I the biggest fan on the Mason Mount deal for Liverpool? No, but if he comes in
I think
and
he
does
balls out
amazingly,
for you. I think Mason Mount will ball out for you lot because you need workhorses in that midfield that has got a bit of. I think he's got a lot more about him than he's showing at Chelsea at the moment.
why is Rob? Why have you put that in the chat? Thiago has Danny Ward posters on his wall.
He can do what he wants with Danny Ward as long as neither of them are on the pitch on Monday. I'm a happy man.
Well, Thiago won't be. Thiago's currently in Spain rehabbing at the minute with his hip. But what would be thinking more towards the game? What would be your predicted 11 for Leicester for Liverpool on Monday?
It's hit and miss, depends if Iheanacho's fit or not. But so it'd be Iverson in goal, by far our best keeper. How that little twat took 28 games to play him, I will never know. But Iverson in goal. Again, depending on fitness, Ricardo or Castagne at right back. I'd go Castagne purely just because he's fit, and like Liverpool's not a game that you want as your first game back for Ricardo. So I'd go Castagne as right back. Siunchu Suter Faze as a back three, which I know you lot like. I know you lot hate playing against sort of a team that's going to just sit with a bank of five, but that's what I hope we do. Christensen as the left back with Mendy, Dewsbury, Hall, and Samare as a midfield three, and then Maddison, Iheanacho, and Vardy is that front three.
Okay. Yeah, if you do sit back, then yeah, I think all of us gonna absolutely hate it as well. But
we're the only team in the world that sits back defensively and still concedes 5 goals.
Like, actually, no. Leeds do as well. To be fair, like Leeds.
No, Leeds play exciting football, but they just get spanked every time. I'd rather at least have a go and lose than just bend over and lose.
That's true. To be fair, but on a Liverpool front, anyway. Again, I think it's pretty plain and simple for Liverpool. Same old template. Again, obviously Harvey Elliott instead of Harvey Elliott out, sorry, for Jordan Henderson. And then again, I think the front three writes itself in terms of Luis Diaz, Cody Gakpo, and Mo Salah as well. Can Mo get his 20th league goal against Leicester? That'll be very interesting.
20th, 21st, 22nd, probably.
Well, thinking about score prediction, what are you going for Monday night?
Oh, do we have to do this?
Yes, we have to do it.
So my score prediction is...
Get your microphone on.
I'm glad we agree on. The thing is, I never want to go against our team, but I just can't see a win. I'm going to go 2-1 Leicester, but I don't believe it. I don't believe it, but I'm never...
Say it with chest.
No. I'm too hurt to say it this season.
To be fair, like, again, I think you'll score, because, again, Liverpool keeping clean sheets is away from home is non-existent. To be fair,
but I'll tell you what though, and if we go 1 goal up early on and the crowd become a factor in it, like you've experienced it yourselves over the last few years, like it can be a horrible, horrible place to come, and that's what I'm hoping we make it on Monday. But like my faith in that is so minimal.
I think we were talking the last 2 fixtures at the King Power between Leicester and Liverpool. Leicester won, so
I think isn't it the last 3?
Yeah, it is the last 3. I just scrolled down now. Yeah, no, it is the last 3. So it's not the best of records.
But to be fair though, the two of them were behind closed doors. You might as well have played them on Stanley Park, if we're honest.
Well, to be fair, like I think last season, I think that 1-0 defeat was our worst performance last season.
But there was a lot of pissed off feeling around Leicester because we played you in the League Cup the week before, where Ricardo got his leg broken, and like there was a lot of like, you know, when
hate.
I felt like say that again.
There's a lot of hate between both Liverpool and Leicester.
Yeah, and it was one of those where it was like it was never gonna be a nice game. Like, and that's what we need it to be on Monday, though. Like, if we try and play football against you, we're gonna lose. I hope Dewsbury goes in without hurting anyone, goes and kicks someone, just makes it a bit of
I can't believe that of you going like, well, we don't hurt anyone. I know for a fact you're like, go on, get in the tackle.
No, get stuck in, but don't injure them. Do you know what I mean? Like, first minute of the game, like, just get stuck into someone, let them know you're there. But unfortunately, that's been coached out of them by Rodgers, and that's not something that comes back overnight.
Yeah. No,
I'd just love Dewsbury Hall or someone just early on put a crunching tackle in, get the crowd right up for it, and like make it a competitive game. Because if we sit off and let you play football, you'll have the easiest 90 minutes of your life.
I think, well, it's like likewise. I think Virgil did a crunching tackle on a Brentford player. We played Brentford, and that properly like set the tone. Where like Virgil van Dijk isn't really like that. But yeah, I think if you are gonna go in terms of just football style and try playing against us, I think Liverpool will beat you. I think, well, I think it'd be like similar towards like what happened against Leeds. Like where it might be entertaining, it might be back and forth, but I think Liverpool will have a bit too much.
Yeah, but you have to. If we tried to do that against Fulham when we ended 5-0, we ended like with 5 goals in our own net. If we try and do that against you lot, we'll end up breaking our own record for 9-0, but at the wrong end of it.
Well, to fair, Carl's mentioned 10-0 Liverpool play, so again, maybe there might be a record.
I'll tell the thing that does give me confidence is the fact you play such a high line and you'd play it very well, but it leaves room in behind for the likes of Barnes, the likes of Daka, the likes of Vardy. There will be space in behind, and that's just what we've got to exploit. The worry is that we just sit deep, and don't get out. And that's what you did so well the year that you won your title, is you suffocated teams in to where there wasn't that out. But that came from pressing from the front from Firmino, and then like the second wave of press from the midfield, and then obviously the back four was right on them. Without the press of the front and the midfield, I feel like that's been a huge part of what the vulnerability of the back's been this year. Like, it's very easy to look at a defender and say, oh, they've been poor this season. But defending, and like it's a basic thing to say, but defending comes from the front.
Yeah, no, it does. 100%. I think that if Leicester do sit back and then try and counter-attack, I think with this new style that Liverpool have got, I think, again, Trent could just find that. I think that the thing for you, I think what Brentford did, they did so well at times, was try and close the angles down for Trent. I think if you give Trent too much time and space, then again he will pick a brilliant pass out and
that's why I'd almost like to see like Dewsbury Hall just sit on him all game, because he's like a Duracell bunny. He just does not stop going. Like, you say what you want about him being like technically lacking as a footballer, and he does. Like, technically, he's probably not Premier League standard, but he just works and works and works. And these kind of games, like I would like to see Dean Smith do something like where he just sticks him on Trent. And I'm not saying Trent's your only threat, but he's your main creative outlet, and like sees like force you to play in a different way. But I don't think we'll do that. My only thing is, I just hope that we try and exploit the space down that left-hand side channel. And this is where I think, like, I'm going to go into a nerdy bit of detail now, but for people who watch sort of Vardy, everyone talks about Vardy's runs in behind as causing huge problems. He runs the left-hand channel more than any other more than the right-hand channel. When you look at like the runs that he makes into that left-hand channel, that is exactly like and you can check the heat maps and all of that. I retweeted something about it earlier. Is exactly the space that Trent leaves open. So it's like it's just about getting that ball into the channel, which is the thing that's going to be the difficult thing because. Like that's what I think for you guys. If you stop that ball into the channel, then that'll be 90%. You'll get the win. But if we can get that ball into the channel, is like then there's an opportunity for us. And like I'm really scraping the barrel with it.
I think I was about to say. I think the only problem with that, and I think what adds to Liverpool as well, is the fact you've got Ibu Kanate. Like Ibu Kanate has been by far our best centre half. You got him on that side.
I'd still fancy Vardy in a foot race with him though.
I don't know. I don't know now.
Like on a short acceleration burst, like there's very like I know he's 34 now. Sorry, 35 now, but still on like
old man.
He doesn't have that like rapid sprint like where he sort of could sprint away like and no one's touching him, but he's still got that instant burst of acceleration which very few players can come anywhere near him with.
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, Night Carl as well. Thank you for popping in. Jack saying most Tory name in Europe. Yeah, Dewsbury Hall is. I think that's
until you hear him talk, bro. Like,
to be fair, I've never heard him talk. But yeah, Dewsbury Hall is again it's a very posh name and a very Tory name. To be fair,
I'll tell you what, Daka would be perfect for this game if he didn't have the trampoline of the first touch.
Do you know what? I remember me and you talking about Daka. I was a huge fan of Paston Daka when he was going to maybe join Liverpool. It's like, yeah, maybe Liverpool were actually fortunate enough to walk away from that because he's been injury consult all the time.
He hasn't been injured. He's just not good enough.
Is it really that? Like
he's just not good enough. Like he's got a trampoline of the first touch. It's like you can make all of the brilliant runs in behind you want. You can press like an absolute like pressing machine. I think people will be surprised by Vardy. Like Vardy under Dean Smith's been such a different player than he has under Rodgers. But with Daka, it's like you can be as much of an athlete as you want. You can be as much as like a pressing machine as you want. If you can't control a football, what's the point?
Yeah, no. Was it Jack saying don't get Connor start? Don't get Connor going on Daka. To be fair, I never said he was another Salah. I thought that again, judging him basis on I think the 3 preseason games he played against us, he looked amazing. But then again, what preseason games? To be fair,
but the thing is, I think what makes Daka look worse is the fact he's been compared to Vardy, and Vardy in Leicester fans' eyes is God. So you're always going to be, do you know what I mean, struggling against it. And then you've got the other strikers, someone who's technically brilliant in Iheanacho, maybe not the athlete that he is, but you're comparing him to Iheanacho, who's got one of the the best technical abilities in our team, and that's part of the reason I'm really hoping that he's fit and available for this game because he can offer something that no one else really can in our team, which is that ability to hold the ball up, play with his back to goal, and bring other players into the game, which will obviously be more of an outlet if we are to play 5 at the back, and it will sort of relieve a bit of the pressure because I'm expecting you to have in between 60 and 70% of possession.
Yeah, I think that's the safe bet. To be fair, Doug's going with the 4-1.
Well, you notice how he's put the 4 first.
Doug, 4-1 Liverpool, please. Not the other way around.
I see you, Doug. I see you.
God's sake. I am going to go 3-1 Liverpool, though. I think again it's going to be a hard game. I think, as Jurgen said earlier on, it's going to be you're going to be fighting for your lives. I think in Liverpool.
I wish we were. We ain't showed a bit of fight in the last 2 months.
You say that though. It's every single time Liverpool play a team, it seems like they have their game of the season against us. Like it just seems it all the time. But yeah, I'm gonna go 3-1 for Liverpool. Hopefully Mo gets his 20th goal of the season, and maybe Darwin gets a hat trick. Maybe if Doug's going for 4-1. To be fair, but we are going to leave it there, guys. Big thank you to all of you guys. Big thank you to Ant as well for popping on as well. It's been a while since me and you had a chat on stream. Of course, obviously Ant streams on Twitch as well. Am I allowed to say that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if you do want to mention, but yeah, obviously Ant streams on Twitch and of course on YouTube. So also Mark, if you could, or any mod, put Ant's links in the comments down below as well. But Ant, before we head off, do you have anything else to say before we do it off?
Don't really like football anymore. I might get into golf.
You said this to me. You're like, I'm retired now. I don't really focus on football anymore.
Oh,
It's like,
I'm a retired football fan.
yeah,
Nah,
what is it?
I'm looking like if we go down, I'm looking forward to the championship because it's something different. And as a neutral, I prefer the championship as a league, but I'd just rather not be in it.
Yeah, I think everyone will be like that. To be fair, but well, that's the thing. Now we get to you probably get to review PGA Tour 24 next as well.
I'll beat a bit of a. Oh, I tell you what, I used to love. You know, on Wii, like Wii Sports, Wii Sports
Yeah,
Golf. The hours I used to play that is ridiculous.
I love watching the TikTok guy now that tries to get a hole in ones all the time. You know,
Oh,
have you
yeah.
seen that guy? Like that, I love that guy, man. Honestly, but and I'll see you tomorrow as well. Of course, 4-1 Liverpool, he says as well. Honest as well. Jack's gone with OnlyFans as a potential route as well.
You don't have to pay, darling.
Get those special pictures, but need to kill the game off in the first half. Yeah, absolutely agree as well. And thank you, Mark, for putting out the link in the comments as well. Even though he is probably going to retire at the end of the season and become a PGA Tour expert, I should say anyway. But guys, big thank you to all of you for commenting, liking, sharing, subscribing as well. Been a very much appreciated as always, of course. And again, it's always great to have Anton as well to talk Leicester. Again, if you could somehow get out of relegation and relegate the blue shites across the park, again, that'd be very much appreciated. But again, I think they're safe, maybe with that win that they got against Brighton. But again, that's a whole nother conversation anyway. But guys, have a fantastic rest of your evening anyway. Of course, we'll be live tomorrow with a news episode. Of course, speaking about the McAllister Mount, all the news that has broken today that we're going to talk about tomorrow anyway. And of course, make sure to check out the shorts as well anyway. But until next time, guys, that's going to be it from us. I've been Connor from the Cup Council. See you later. Ta-ra.